Okay, guys. So here is my applied assignment and what SPE 223 Social Disability Inclusion has taught me along with my brother's disability. And this is by me, Jeffrey Schott. And I think this is tomorrow's date, December 2nd, 2025. Let's get into the table of contents. We look at the pre-work topic, my brother's disability, why, to gain insight into his disability, prior knowledge. It was limited to my personal interactions I've had with my brother. Course materials, I will integrate course materials into this presentation, my research, course assignments, and my interview with my mom about my brother's disability. A little bit more on the research. I will be combining my personal experiences with course materials and also my interview I conducted with my mom to give a detailed understanding of my brother's disability and inclusive practices. Okay, so the first applied assignment is going to be our pre-work. So the pre-work topic, my brother Tom's autism and how that affected his learning outcomes in daily life. Why I chose this topic, because it's important for me to understand from his point of view what lack of inclusion looked and felt like, so maybe I could become more informed on the topic of discussion. And then the aspects of inclusion I chose were to emphasize the aspect of education and community that lacked inclusion for him due to his disability. And then what resource from the course and your own research, UIC Library, Google Scholar, will you use to inform your knowledge plan applied assignment? So I used this article, Language Matters, that talks about ableism and my own personal experiences with ableism and just the language I used with my brother growing up. Looking at this article, it really resonated with me. Let's see, look up the definition of word dumb and you'll see that it is used to mean lacking in intelligence as well as lacking the power of human speech. And then ableism in our language goes deeper than insults. When you use a disability such as blindness or deafness as a metaphor for your experiences as a person who is not blind or deaf, you minimize the experiences of disabled people and demonstrate an ignorance towards what those terms actually mean. You must recognize how those terms have historically othered disabled people and deprived them of autonomy over their own bodies. So yeah, just looking at ableism and how I've kind of used that, I went a little bit more into detail here. This article resonates deeply with me, particularly regarding my own use of ableist language and the insults I have directed at my brother over the years. I'm eager to understand the extent to which these words have affected him. The article effectively exposes how everyday language can have a detrimental impact on individuals with disabilities by using terms that are inherently associated with their conditions. So that's some pre-work, and then we move forward here with the interview that I think was module 5, and I interviewed my mom, Betsy, and why I chose her for the interview. I sought to gain insights into the impact of my brother's disability from her perspective and foster a deeper understanding of her experiences. Background knowledge on her. My mom's knowledge of my brother's disability is a mix of deep intuitive understanding, a lot of emotional and mental stress, and the constant effort of becoming an expert advocate. And then here is a copy of my interview questions that I used when I interviewed my mom. And as you could see, I tried to focus on my topics of, when we go back to this slide, as far as integrating, let's see, the materials and here we go, the inclusion of education and community. So I try to kind of integrate that into these questions, like, did you notice certain cues with his communication, physical cues that he struggles with? And was he provided the proper care of those issues? Do you remember interactions where there were prejudices towards Tommy from teachers or community members or other parents about Tommy's issues? So yeah, and then I went a little bit more into detail into that a little bit later on here. Here's another course material resource, the podcast episode 17, Invisible Disabilities. And it says go to the 10:57 minute mark in podcast about how she gets exhausted having to explain herself and her invisible disability. And I put here how and why you used it. My brother has a non-visible disability just like the one discussed in the podcast. It can be tough when people don't get it, especially when he's frustrated because it's hard for others to understand his social cues. The podcast guest and host talked about how hard it is to always explain and justify your condition, especially when it's not obvious to others. I'm curious to know how this has affected him over the years since he has a disability that's not visible to most people. I'd also love to hear his thoughts on this. And then I'm going to click on here and we're going to go to this real quick. And then we'll jump to the 10:57 mark and just kind of hear what she has to say about this.
The basis.
That's wonderful.
That's great. It's exhausting to always have to explain my disability. You know, there's a lot of doubt. What ends up happening is that there's a group of people who are close who know. They know the thing that I can do and the thing that I can't do. And so there's, you know, the areas of comfort tend to be more restricted. And then, you know, like Tiffany was saying, you know, the mob is out there. You look fine. And, you know, but little do they know how I struggle and how, you know, frankly, I've learned to cope in so many ways. You know, just because I'm coping well doesn't mean there's not a problem.
Yeah, I definitely identified with that with my brother and his disability, you know, and him having to, because it is a hidden disability at times, I just felt, you know, that really resonated with me and what she was talking about with that and the invisible disabilities and having to cope and just, yeah, so I really like that. And then here, the next applied assignment, we have some evidence, more evidence, and here I like this question on from my mom's interviews. What do you think should be okay? And with this evidence I found was one of my mom's interview questions. I asked her, what do you think should be changed within the school system and in society regarding diagnosing and helping people like your son with autism? And she put, I think every child in grade school through high school should be tested for developmental disabilities such as anxiety, depression, autism, and have qualified counselors on site to work with children. We as parents don't always see the signs, and if we do, don't necessarily know what to do. And I thought that was kind of interesting with this article I found. We'll open this on 10 ways to make society more inclusive for people with disabilities. And I really liked what she had to say here with number 5, promote social inclusion in schools. Our overall cultural consciousness on how we treat and interact with disability needs to change beginning in elementary schools. We need to celebrate our peers for their differences. If this is taught at a young age, less discrimination, more social inclusion will occur. Having kids with and without disabilities learning side by side helps everybody appreciate the talents and gifts all kids bring with them. as a society, we have the responsibility to promote the inclusion of our differences. So I just thought that kind of connected a little bit with what my mom was talking about. Okay, let's go to the next slide here. Some new learning that I checked out, and here the inclusion topic of my brother. So this TED Talk I found was about why everything you know about autism is wrong by this Jacques Den Houding. And I really liked this TED Talk and the aspect it had on the social model. And so let's open this TED Talk and check this out. Well, let me actually touch on it first. I put this module connects to the course by exploring how different environments can impact individuals with disabilities. Just like Jacques de Houdin struggled to navigate shopping malls due to the bright lighting and crowded atmosphere, my brother often experienced breakdowns in malls. At times, I felt frustrated and blamed his autism for these reactions. However, after watching Jacques TED Talk, I now understand that the mall environment itself was more challenging for him than his autism. And let's check out this YouTube, and we're going to go to this part where she is talking about the social model.
But there's another way to think about disability. It's called the social model of disability. In the social model, disability happens when a person's environment doesn't cater for their individual characteristics. In the social model, we don't refer to people with a disability. Disability isn't something that I carry around like luggage. Instead, we use the word disabled as a verb. Disability is something that's being done to me. I'm actively being disabled by the society around me. When I go to a shopping mall, I don't struggle because there's something wrong with me. I struggle because the shopping mall is designed in a way that doesn't cater to my needs. If we started designing shopping malls that were quiet, dimly lit, predictable, and sparsely populated, well, I'd still be autistic, but I might not be disabled by shopping malls anymore. Almost every
I really liked that, and it really connected with what I was talking about here with my brother. And then let's go on to continued inquiries. Now I want to know what I want to know more about. I want to know more about how to practice inclusivity. New area of inquiry. I think for me, continuing to learn that inclusivity in society is about ensuring everyone, regardless of their background, feels valued, respected, and has equal opportunities to participate fully and thrive. It goes beyond simply acknowledging diversity to actively removing barriers and creating an environment where all individuals feel a sense of belonging. And then note how you will go about learning more, how to foster inclusivity. Here's a few examples. Challenge stereotypes, avoid assumptions and challenge stereotypes that can lead to exclusion. Promote inclusive design systems, policies, and environments that include a diversity of people and ways of participating. Listen and be open. And then let's go down here. And okay, so question for you guys, for my peers, is what are some strategies to promote a more inclusive society? And that is it with my presentation. We're right at 14 minutes and 30 seconds actually already. And I just want to thank everyone. I want to thank SPE 223. This class has been highly rewarding and informative, and I am really pleased that I took it. All right, that's all I got. Thank you guys, and that's it. Thank you.